Welcome to High School Bathrooms, everyone. The best place to have a conversation. I'm Derek.
And I'm Simon.
Today, we're going to be talking about cliques.
Uh, the definition of a clique is a small group of people that like to talk to each other and interact with each other that share either something in common or share a place that they go in common. And normally they don't let as many other people from outside of the clique into the clique.
That's why, even though clique is considered a noun, you might hear, I don't know if it's a real, word. I don't believe it is. It's just an informal, slang term. You might hear the word clickiness, which is, I would use it to describe a group of people who, like Simon just said, who's very close, but maybe not be too accepting towards other people.
Yeah.
But that's actually, I believe, one stereotype about cliques. Although it is true to some extent, it's
Well,
not.
that's the definition of a clique, but the word clique has grown to have a contextual meaning dependent on our society, and we've actually grown to, instead of making cliques necessarily a bad thing, most people in a high school or middle school will just say, "Oh, I'm part of this clique or group." Use those words
Yeah, and
interchangeably.
it's not really, unless it's actually pretty casual now.
Yeah, it's not a different word. It's kind of just interchangeable with group.
I feel like what was it? The whole all the old movies and stuff back then maybe could have put like a negative connotation on it, but now that I feel like the internet plays a big part in it too. Um,
Yeah.
there's not as much of a negative connotation anymore. At least to me, there
No.
isn't. It's just like Simon said. I just used it like I'd say, oh yeah, like I'm part of this group or I'm part of this clique. It's not really a big thing or a big deal.
Yeah, so the there's a lot of different kinds of cliques that we notice as we've gone through high school and other different events that we go
Oh,
to,
Simon,
because
Simon.
there's
So you said that cliques aren't just high school too, right? You can have cliques
yeah
like outside of high school.
there's
All right.
there's cliques in everywhere. There's cliques in workplace. There's cliques in high school. There's cliques in anywhere where there's enough people to where people start noticing that there's differences in between the people there, and then they tend to gravitate towards the people who have similarities instead of the differences from themselves.
All right.
So a clique usually forms even in like animals, just cliques or groups would form of animals that think that, oh, these people will help me survive better, so we'll stick together with these groups, and that also goes into like emergent behavior and other things like that, which we won't get into, but there's a lot of reasons why we form cliques. But there's a lot of different kinds of cliques that we've noticed, especially in high school,
Mhm.
because that's what we have the most experience with. But things like cheerleader cliques will pop up because they share something in common, being cheerleaders.
Yes.
But also there will be cliques from like classes and other things where if you have a class with someone, then in a couple different people, and then you notice you have other classes with those people, you'll kind of start to form a group of people that you interact with. And since you guys interact with each other so often, you're not going to start including other people, which slowly becomes a clique.
Yeah. So they're not just there could be situational cliques too. Like Simon said, like in classes, if you have a class with like almost no one you know, and then you know like one person in it, and then maybe they know like two other people, and all you guys do is talk to each other, then that becomes like a situational clique where even though you might not hang out outside of that class, they're the only people you hang out with in that class.
Yeah.
So that would be considered a clique.
So there's basically, if I'm getting this kind of right, well, what I'm thinking is in high school there's basically three kinds of cliques. There's situational cliques, which we just talked about. There's like
Interest
group
cliques,
cliques. Yeah,
like
interest and
special
group cliques,
interest.
which is like just cheerleading or you're in a specific club or anything like that. And then there's also the just based on similarities cliques, like if you're all white kids, if you're all women,
I think
that could form a clique, even though that's more like racist and sexist cliques, which are less approved upon as recent years have popped up. It's still a thing, and it's still recognizable as a clique.
I don't know about you, but at my school, for some reason, like I notice it and other people notice it too. All the Asian kids seem to hang out with each other, and I don't know if it's just for my school or like is that a thing? Like I don't know,
Uh,
but literally, I just I see all the Asian kids, like not all, almost all of them, but like a bunch of them just hanging out with each other, and that's it. Like they're in a
one
group,
of the
and I don't know how I feel about it.
one of the big things about that is that Asian culture is so strong in comparison to American culture that Asian culture focuses on Asian people, which is kind of focused into a lot of Asian parents who traveled over from like Asian countries.
Simon, I'm an
So
immigrant.
some of that, yeah, I know. So some of that goes into their children, and since they're thinking like that, they're going to be more willing to accept people of their same culture just because their culture is so strong.
No, I get it. And also because yeah, the whole cultural thing. I feel like well, also it's just similarities. Like I know a lot of them have like they talk about things that they're interested in and they're similar. Like I know a lot of them are actually pretty similar. Like not even gonna lie, they have the same
Mhm.
interests and that's why. But oh yeah, you forgot to mention um like cliques earlier. You can just be in a clique just because it's a good time. Like you don't have to. Maybe you don't share an interest or similarities or but generally what happens is the reason why you would want to be in a clique like a pro like a positive version of it would be that it's just fun like it's a good time.
Yeah, some of the other pros and cons of clicks, which we got to discuss, are like pros. He said it's fun. It's also great if you're in a high school or a workplace because then you're uh, remembering things because people in a clique can help you remember and keep on task to whatever you're
I
doing.
get mhm.
Do you have any other pros that you'd like to talk about there?
Well, let's see here. It's fun, similar interest. They can push you, they can motivate you to whatever the goal is. Keeps you on track, gives you someone to talk to. Like you if you're part of a like a tightly knit clique, then like you should be at that point where you can just talk to anyone in it like at any time. Like like you don't have to be shy about it. That's a good thing. It gives you a sense of like belonging or togetherness because you're part of a group. And I mean I don't know, it's not to a lot of people that's not very important, but I feel like everyone feels the need to be accepted somehow.
Yeah, that's
So that
one of basic human needs because we've just developed social constructs such as like oh if you don't fit in you're not good enough. Oh if you don't fit in
yeah,
you're not
conform.
because of business and marketing. Advertisements want you to feel like there's this sense of exclusivity with a product, which creates a sense of oh I want to belong to that group, which then in turn makes you want to belong to other groups, and that just makes you so involved in a social place.
I think the whole product click thing like falls under I think it was like similar interest because one big what like I something that just jumped to my mind when you said that is like clicks that are like people who are really interested in shoes like Nike and everything like sneakerheads, that's what
Mhm.
they're called. That's a click. And even though they might not have like they might not be too similar, they do have one thing in common, and that's because they love shoes. And for the whole interest click, we you don't even, you might not like all it takes is just maybe one interest, and it brings you guys together. Like oh like here personal example, Magic the Gathering. I mean, we had a whole podcast episode on this, and we talked about the community and everything. But my whole play group of people who play Magic the Gathering that I play with, they're all different kids. Like some of them are similar, yeah, but most of them are could be as different from each other as like blue and red, like
Yeah. But
But the
one of the big things about the Magic the Gathering group is I wouldn't consider that a clique just because it doesn't necessarily match the definition because most Magic the Gathering play groups are super willing to add new people. Like recently,
yeah.
we've just added a bunch of people who we didn't even know existed, and like there's people from different schools now at our group, and it's crazy that we're just expanding so quickly. But
So would you consider then because of that the diversity to not be considered a clique? Like are cliques supposed to be like uniform and not too
no,
diverse?
it's not that they're uniform and not too diverse. It's that they all have to share a similar interest or similar trait, and they all have to not be willing, or not be as willing to add new people to the group. That's one of the big things that.
Oh,
Well,
so
that's one of the
okay.
big things
All
that's
right.
chopped off at the end of a clique because now we just think about cliques as interchangeable with groups, even though they're not. Because a clique And this is the negative part of a clique, is that they're not willing to add in new people and new ideas, which is the big problem with a clique. If you're going by the textbook definition, because like even though
Yep.
cliques are friends, the Nazis were also a clique, and that's not good. Like that's a bad thing because so many things could have been fixed if they had just brought in new ideas and they wouldn't have had to do bad things like that. Because so many good things can be created by groups,
So
but so many bad things are created by cliques.
I think another thing about that is for similar interests, if you guys all share a negative interest,
Yeah.
you guys become like a negative clique. Like let's say like druggies, like for example, crackheads, or people who smoke weed. Even though they might not be like bad people in general, but they
Hmm.
like drugs are to me personally drugs aren't good. So that's just my standpoint. But if you if you start having a clique based around something like that, like here smoking, like I think everyone can agree that smoking's terrible, like smoking cigarettes. So that's neutral. But if you guys have a group like that and you guys start all hang out and you guys just smoke everywhere, it's just it's like I would consider that to be a bad clique because it's a negative interest that's hurting everyone. So
Another
like gangs,
another part
gangs too.
another yeah.
Gangs is a
Gangs
negative
are
bad clique. Obviously, if you have a group of friends and you're all going around like shooting people or like stealing stuff, like part of a gang activity, that's a bad clique. That's a bad
yeah.
interest.
Yeah. So the another part of that is like bullying, because
Oh yeah.
high school related gangs and cliques, because those are synonyms for each other, and those are similar things, gangs and cliques. Just because they have similar things, other than a gang has initiation processes, and that's the one big difference. But uh,
Well, even cliques might have
yeah,
I think college sororities I feel like would
and
be considered cliques to some
and
extent.
fraternities, because those are
Yeah, and
synonyms,
fraternity.
those are synonyms for
Yeah,
click.
like
But
they have hazing. They have hazing like things that get in, and sometimes those things can be dangerous, dude. Like people die
yeah,
from
very
those.
very dangerous just because people go all out on that kind of stuff. But back to bullying, especially in our high school
Uh,
environment and middle school environment, being around people with a similar interest, and you'll see this if you learn about psychology, is creates an Aryan race style thought process where you're like, oh, I want to be the perfect, I am the perfect person, and that creates a superiority complex,
mm,
which can lead to bullying, treating others unjustly, and just treating others like they're
yeah.
less than you, and that creates bullying, and that creates bad things in other people, like inferiority complexes, where they think they're less than everyone else, and that ruins their self-esteem for their entire life. And you can ruin someone's life just because you thought that you were better than someone by hanging out
Uh-huh.
with only a certain group of people who thought similar to you and respected you, like on a pedestal.
And I think it also goes for the whole group too. If your whole entire group think you're better than like just because you're in that clique or group, then it's not just you. Sometimes it could be like a whole clique bullying
Yeah,
one person.
and not even just one person, just anyone you think is, oh, that's a loser. Oh, that person has no
Oh, they're
friends.
they're not part of
Yeah,
us. They're not one of us. You can't sit with us, type of
which
thing.
is the place where you need to open up your mind and think, oh, this is more than just, oh, this is a loser. Oh, this is a person. This is a person just like me, just like all of our other group. And that's why a clique is not good, even though a group is good. There's a big difference, and
Well,
you can't, I mean,
hmm
a textbook clique is not good. A textbook group could be good and it could be bad. But if we're using clique interchangeably with group, then it kind of can confuse people with which one it is, and they're not good.
hmm well, okay. So personally, for me, when as I was growing up, I in my middle school there wasn't too many. I don't think there were too many cliques. Like maybe I wasn't noticing it. But now for high school I can speak about high school because I actually remember. Um, my personally for my high school environment, we're a smaller school. We're not a public school. And we have less people as a result of it. So I think one part of that is that I don't know if I talked about this in a previous podcast episode. I probably did, but there's a larger sense of community in the school itself just because we have less people. and we all have something in common since it's a charter school, so that means for us specifically, it means your parents have to work in the city that we go to school in order for you to be
Hmm.
qualified to go in. So that's one thing everyone already has in common, right? And it's just I mean, I feel like well, every high school is gonna be different. It's than mine and everyone else's. So the whole group clique dynamic thing's gonna be different. But personally, for my school, since we're more like family and everyone really like they talk, a lot of people there's not it's not as clicky as I feel like some other schools would be. Like we have I mean we have the groups that people hang out with, but even to me I wouldn't even consider them cliques sometimes. They're just groups, and that's the whole thing with using it now like as a common term without and not using the textbook definition. Like there's no negative connotation anymore. Like I would identify a clique, but I don't have any like ill feelings towards that
Yeah.
group. So I never really grew up having a negative connotation for cliques other than what I've seen in movies. But even then, movies are just movies, like they can't.
Yeah.
So I don't.
But
Mm-hmm. No, keep going.
with what you were saying, I also went to the same school for my entire life, and I actually had a very different experience with from you in my later years. Just
Mm.
because in my eighth grade year, when I was finding out that I was going to be, I kind of found out. I didn't know if I was exactly finding out because I didn't know if I was exactly going to go to the school that I'm going to now, which I
Yep.
do love, and this is my school, and I love this school more than any other school I've ever been to because I've been to a total
Mm.
of 4 schools, I think, and
Okay.
there's so much like community at this school because we're an even smaller school than your school is, and
Wait, really?
yeah, our high school only
Huh.
has like 300 total people or something.
You're kidding? Nuh-uh.
Yeah, it's
What?
crazy
No
small.
way. That is crazy.
Yeah,
Holy crud.
it's probably more
Yeah.
than that, but it's really small. So we have a great sense of, oh, I know so many people here, and just myself, I feel like, oh, I connect so well with these other people here. And this school is so loving and caring, and everyone there that I've met a single bad person. Everyone there that I've met has a purpose and is at least a neutral person towards me. But when I was at the school that you were going to, um, I the people there were like kind of creating their own clique throughout the whole school because I was talking to people who had been to the other school, and they're like, "Oh, it's not a good school. We are better." And I was thinking, "Oh, this then I must not. I'm not gonna have a fun time. I'm not gonna have a good time over there." And I was getting
Uh-huh.
affected negatively by a clique mentality from a whole school because I was thinking
Oh.
I was so scared
Oh my
that
gosh.
I was going to be bullied and treated unfairly at that school because
You're right.
there was a complete clique mentality at that school. So I was scared, I was worried, and then as soon as I went to the school, I realized that, oh, it was just a clique mentality and it wasn't a real thing.
Simon, I've been I think I've been living on a whole lie. The whole school's a clique. Oh my gosh. Wait. So then are geographical cliques a thing? Like I feel like personally I used to live up north and I feel like a lot of northern people look down upon people in the south. Like
Well, yeah, what do you think happened when the Nazis came to power? Like, that was an entire geographical clique.
oh shoot.
It was, they were just based on because they were in Germany. Oh, we're all better
We're all
than you.
Germans and
We need someone to blame, so we blame the Jewish people, and then it got out of hand, and people started dying, and then people realized,
yeah.
oh, clique mentality is not good.
Well, I mean, obviously that's just one extreme of it though. Like I don't
But there's so many other less extreme but still bad things that
yeah.
happen, like with uh girl cliques, like women bullying other women socially.
Mhm.
That happens all the time, and it's not good because it just happens because people think they're more popular than other people, and that's why women commit suicide. And then male bullying's just as bad because the male suicide rate in teenagers is even higher than women's. It's like, I think it's 53% or something, 63%, something like that, something crazy high.
Well, compared to what?
In
Compared with like
comparison
the
to
whole
women,
population?
like out of all the
Oh,
population,
oh,
more
okay,
men
okay.
commit suicide than women do. And
Well, Okay.
and
All
it's
right.
due to bullying, and it's due to people thinking that they're better than other people.
Okay. All right. Well, this whole time we've been covering about negatives, but I actually want to go into more of the positive aspects of cliques. And I actually have a lot more to say about the positive aspects, just because like I said earlier, I grew up not having a negative connotation of
Yeah.
a clique. And so, actually, something just recently happened to me. I actually, so I just converted religions. I don't know if I told you about this, but you probably heard. I'm now a Unitarian Universalist, and the whole religion itself had Christian origins, I'm actually not. It's not a Christian religion, if that makes sense. It's not a monotheistic religion. It's a very open religion, and it can have it takes things from every like a lot of religions, etc., etc. It's a pretty liberal religion. And then the reason why I converted was because I went to this thing at like that was hosted by a church like youth group on this Wednesday, and I loved it a lot. It was very eye opening to me personally, and ever since then, I feel like there's like religious cliques too,
Yes, there
Simon, by the
definitely
way,
is.
and I feel like the church kids, you know.
Hmm.
And recently, I feel like I've been getting more accepted by that group because I was never like a Christian to begin with, but I'm starting to have a more like accepting viewpoint towards Christianity and towards all of that. And lately, they've been making me feel like accepted and like I'm part of a whole new community now of these just wonderful, amazing people, and they're tight. Like they have really strong bonds, but like well that point is the textbook definition says they're not wouldn't be considered a clique because I feel like they're so willing to accept me with open arms that they
Yeah.
so that's one very positive aspect of cliques used today, not the textbook definition. That it's your clique can become your family, dude. Like everyone, like all the church kids I know, they're basically family, and it's so great. Like being a part of that sense. Like I felt so accepted and so warm and just so great about it that they were so willing to take me, and like I'm part of this whole new family now, and it's just that's just one very positive aspect. And another one is I you you should be hanging out with people who push you to do better, right?
Hmm.
To be a better person, to do better things, to work harder. Um, and that's where we talked about the whole like negative interest aspect of cliques. If you're hanging out with people who aren't making your life any better, then it just doesn't work, you know?
Hmm.
So if you have a positive clique, for example, if you have a group of just highly motivated kids who want to succeed in life, and they're all pushing each other, they're all motivating each other, then that's also a very positive aspect because then at that point your clique, it, um, it could be family, but then it also becomes motivation. You
Yeah.
know, you're like, oh, if everyone like if you have a group of people you constantly talk to and associate yourself with and hang out with every day, pushing you to your limit. I mean, it's great because you start working harder because they're supporting you, and
Yeah.
supportive cliques are just so good.
But
Like, mhm.
one of the opposite side of that is peer pressure and herd mentality in
Mhm.
cliques, creating disastrous things like
Yeah.
ruining your entire life, making
Mhm.
you, oh, the rest of my clique's doing it, so why don't I take drugs? The rest of my clique's doing
Yeah.
it, so why don't I hit women? The rest of my clique's doing it, so why don't I burn down buildings? Like there's some seriously bad things that could happen if you just solely follow what other people are doing.
Well, that's why you have to choose your friends wisely, and we've been hearing that advice ever since you were a little kid. You choose your friends wisely, and you pick people that you want to hang out with. Um, and they're positive for you. They're beneficial. They're positive, great people to hang out with, and that's who your clique should compose of. And at that point, isn't even a clique anymore by textbook definition because if you're all such great people, I mean, yes, I know very great people who stick to their friend groups and don't maybe not associate themselves with other people, and that's a negative side of it. But they're still great people.
Yeah.
But
So
I think uh, but that's the two of the biggest things I feel like are the biggest positives of being in a clique, the whole family group aspect, acceptance, friendliness, warmth, all that stuff, support. But then also, if you're in a good clique, your clique can push you, can do wonders for you.
Yeah.
Like they can motivate you and push you to your limit and make you work hard. Like and even the whole like clique inner clique competition. If you have a whole bunch of super like competitive kids in a clique, but they're all like really friendly about it, then like that's hosts in clique competition where everyone's like basically competing against one another in a healthy way,
Yeah.
for success. But we've been talking about cliques this whole time, but the people listening might not really identify with some certain cliques. So Simon, do you want to list some examples of cliques that you've personally seen at your high school, and then I can do the same for mine.
Well, clicks that I've seen. So, as I previously mentioned, you can have clicks based upon just solely interests. So, if I'm going with interest clicks, there's football. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big, huge one. Basketball is the other big, huge sport.
Did you say racquetball?
No, basketball. There's no racquetball.
Okay.
There's no racquetball click. If you have a racquetball click at your school, good on you. But there's no,
Hit me up. I want
there's
to join
no,
it. I want to join your
there's
racquetball
no
clique.
racquetball clicks at our school. But those are like the big two sports that our school focuses on. Um, cheerleading. That's like a women
Yep.
women mostly. Well, only women for us because we don't have any male cheerleaders. But
Mm-hmm.
that just like those are some interest clicks. Class-based clicks. I'm actually not part of one because again, it's not a textbook definition click because we're willing to have other people in. We just don't get very many people who want to join us. But it's just me and a couple of my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and we just hang out in like a certain area, and we're like a little bit separated from everyone else in the lunch group, just because, and that kind of creates a group mentality, but not a clique mentality because anyone who wants to come over can. We're not stopping anyone from doing anything. And then there's no race-based cliques at our school just because everyone at our school, I don't think we have very many racist people, and anyone who isn't really accepted as much just because we don't like racism.
Well, no, it's not. It's not just like racism that are race groups. Like I know, like all the people,
Yeah,
like I said earlier, all the Asian kids at my school, they hang together, but they're not racist. It's just
I
because,
know, I know.
yeah,
I'm not saying
no, I
it's
get it.
because you're racist. It's just that we're like not really even
Like race oriented.
pointing it out
Yeah. Okay. All right.
because we have so many different people at our school.
Okay. Keep going.
But yeah, that's like the main three that we have at our school. Like class and interest are the big two, and then uh, the other one, race, doesn't really happen at our school. But do you have any specific ones at your school?
Yes. Interest cliques themselves. We have the football, the whole athletes. We got basketball, like I said. Those are the two biggest things in my school, I feel like. But any sport has its own clique, I feel like. We have the whole cross country. I feel like they're cliquey, in a good way, like not in a bad way. It's just that they have similar interests. They play the same sport, and there's cliques for every sport. I feel like I said, we have like track and field, swimming. Swimming's a big one, but it's not. I'm not using it with a negative connotation. It's just a group of people who just do stuff that are similar. Um, cheerleading definitely big at my school. That's one. We have all the band kids. That's a clique in my opinion.
Oh yeah, we have that at our school too.
You have at my school. There's color guard. That's a clique. So we got all the sports out of the way. Chorus cliques, like the singers, the singing kids, all that stuff. Artists, like the art clique. Like you have cliques for like topics and subjects. Like you have the sports, you have music, you have art, you have like whatever. Um,
I feel
but
like it's a little bit different at our school just because once we differentiate from like athletic stuff, I don't feel like it starts to group up as much anymore. I think it's just based on people you like instead of one
yeah.
interest. It's people who share multiple interests with you because there's so little kids at our
Mhm.
school that we don't have as many people who do as much art,
Yeah.
so there would be less clicks in that form.
Well, I know people at my school who aren't like that. Like for example, like band. Like for example, I know some people who to them band is like their whole life, you know, which isn't a bad thing because it means it shows devotion and you know it's just a hobby, an interest. But if I wasn't in band, I honestly don't know what I would have an interest in like you know like similarity with them just because they make band like their whole thing. And that isn't just for band, that's for other interests as well. But then for interest groups too, like at our school, personally for me, the whole magic community is like a clique, and it's not like a negative clique, you know. But what else is there? You have the people who like smoke weed together. That's a clique. Like low key the druggies. That's one. People who watch basketball and stuff, like all the sport. Like not they don't even if they don't play a sport, they still like sports. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the sports fans. That's a clique. You got. Now these are some ones I noticed. There's probably other ones I don't notice. There is the oh man. There's the lesser interest cliques where they're like very special like the, specific interests like maybe like Game of Thrones like you have a bunch of people who love Game of Thrones all talk about it, that's a clique.
Hmm.
But it's not like a big like one, you know, like it's a specific interest clique.
Yeah, yeah,
uh but those are the main ones I really noticed at our school. But then if you remember like I said earlier, the whole school's a clique apparently, just because
yeah.
we think. And like honestly, I hear about it all the time. People at our school think that we're better than other people, and in some aspects, it's true. You can't deny the facts, you know. But in a lot of other aspects, it's just opinionated. Like, oh, if you're not part of the villages, you're not good enough. Or even people who talk to me about it, they're like, if you don't go to the villages, like you don't have a future or something like that. And people who go here, they tell me that, and I'm like, what? That makes no sense. I don't know what you guys are talking about at all. And it's that whole clique mentality.
Yeah.
But honestly, those are the biggest cliques I can identify in my school. But what, Simon, to you personally, what cliques do you think you're in? Like, what cliques do you identify yourself as
Right.
being in?
Well, the only clique that I could say I would be part of would be the group that I hang out with during lunch and other classes. Sometimes I'll have classes with some of those kids, but that's like the only clique that have because all of my other friends are just good friends
Mm,
or people that I like to be around rather than cliquey things. The only other thing that might be a clique is some of the clubs that I do after school, but even
yeah,
then, it's not really a clique mentality just because we are willing to add new people because it's a club. That's what it's meant to do. It's supposed to
yeah.
have a bunch of people.
For me personally, like okay, so if you don't know this with me by now, and you Simon, you already do, but I don't know if the viewers do. I am super busy all the time, and even like and for you too, like even when you try to hit me up during the day or something, I'll generally tell you I'm doing homework, right?
Yeah, like
And I'm not
all the
lying.
time.
Like I'm so super busy, so I don't really. I'm alone a lot by myself, just doing work, just because I'm so busy and I don't have plans. But I mean, there's the whole stereotypical like you know cliques like we brought up earlier in movies and stuff, in high schools, all the stereotypical ones. And but for me, if I had to, I like I'm such an oh. The biggest issue with me is that since I'm so busy and I'm a very well-rounded person who like doesn't have who isn't devoted to like a single interest or cause or anything. I do a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
Like I don't just do one thing. So the biggest issue for me all the time is that since I'm so different and yet I'm so similar with everyone at the same time, I'm not part of like a consistent friend group, if that
Yeah,
makes sense. Like I can be in like any clique, like almost any friend group, um, and then at the same time, because of that, since I'm not so devoted or like in such one direction, and since I'm well rounded and I'm like part of everything, I'm like not part of
yeah.
it. If that makes sense.
So,
I'm not leaning
there you go.
specifically towards one direction. So if I had to identify with myself, like the closest thing that would be clicky to me that I'd be in, first of all, would be the whole magic click because I mean it's my favorite hobby. So that's the biggest one. But if it's not an interest hobby, then it would probably just be like all the nerdy kids, like you know, like the geeky
Yeah.
nerdy kids. That'd be probably the one I'm in. But like I said, I've been becoming, but I'm like I can fit in any clique to be honest with you right now because I'm just so friendly. And I do a lot of things. So that's why like some of the less minor cliques that I hope I'm becoming a part of are like you know the athletes. Like I'm trying to become more of an athlete. So hopefully, I hang out. Like I talk to everyone, I hang out with everyone, and I'm friendly towards everyone. So it's really
Yeah.
hard for me personally to like differentiate myself. And then I'm hoping to become more with like the church kids, the Christian kids, because they're it's just such a nice community group of people. They're amazing. It's just a very positive environment, and I'm trying to become more about that. But those would be the ones personally to me that I'm most part of.
So I wanted to leave us off with a kind of a summary or like a moral of the story kind of thing, where it the thing that we're trying to say throughout this whole podcast is that we don't want you to be an actual clique. We don't want you to uh, do things where you're not allowing others to be a part of what you're doing. We will always want people to be able to join a good group. We don't want the textbook definition of a clique. If you want to call yourself a clique, that's fine. Just don't
Act like one.
just don't deny other people. So the big thing is keep your mind open. Keep your mind open to other people. Keep your mind open to good things, and that's like one of the recurring themes because that's one way to make yourself a more well-rounded person. It'll keep you like just sharp. It'll keep you open to new things, and it'll let you experience things that you would have never been able to experience before. So that's like the biggest moral and the biggest thing throughout this whole podcast, but especially this episode. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning into High School Bathrooms. If this is your first time listening, we hope you enjoyed. We try to make new content every weekend, so tune in next week for more. Also, check out our Instagram at HSB Podcast, all one word.
Make sure to smash that like button and comment below what you thought about this episode and what you think we should do for future episodes. As always, thanks for listening. Share us with your friends. Wash your hands with soap and water and have a great day.